Quiet Chaos Driving Me Mad, Chapter 8. I can't be negative. I cannot be negative. Being negative is bad. The in my mind pep talk did little to dissuade me from going down the road of memory lane when it came to how these things played out. And in my contemplating to confide my views to Trey, I was convinced he would repeat himself. I can't wait to see you too, I wrote back to her. That was in line with the lack of extensive text for her to read that my father had previously advocated for. I turned my television on and closed my eyes, effectively reducing it to a radio pinned to the wall. The following 50 minutes were met with me repeating many of the same activities described in the aftermath of my encounter with Sarah. The infighting, ignoring of the television, and laying on a warm mattress that still did little to chip away at the ice-cold reception I anticipated in my date later on that day. There was a knock at the door, and the height of its banging was in the midsection, already telling me it was one of my parents. I opened the door to see my mother folding her arms and smirking. She soon placed her hand on my chest, as though to signal to me to move out of the way so that she could enter, an act I complied with. "So when are you going to thank me for setting you up?" she asked. In the not-so-distant future, I answered, "Thanks. That doesn't sound like the appreciation of a son that believes his mother found him a good woman to go out with." I agree, it sounds like the son who's so used to getting turned down that when his mother finally gets involved, then he thinks it won't make a difference. Did you ever think dwelling on all of that keeps you from progressing with other women? No, this does not impede me from actively trying to meet new ones, and I never bring this stuff up during conversations with them. While all that negative talk isn't doing anything for anybody, just stop. I wish I could. Do you think I enjoy feeling that each one of them has some complete lack of interest in me that will eventually manifest? That view didn't come from someone saying no or just walking away when I asked for their number. That manifested when they spoke to me for days, weeks, or months, and I got the idea in my head that they liked me at least a little, and maybe that could turn into more than the friend zone. What's your point in bringing that up? To show you that it isn't just about how many times I've been turned down. It has entirely to do with how many times I got accepted when it came to just speaking for whatever length of time, and how I felt misled into believing something could develop from that if I just gave it enough time or effort. I placed my hand over my face, the darkness of my palm accompanying an exhale that was positioned to hit the ground. "I don't want you against me on this," I told her. "Me being against you would have stopped me from looking for someone for you," she replied. "Yeah, but I can already tell you feel as if I'm going to sabotage this out of some bitterness toward the past. You'll do what you want to do in the end." She left the room and closed the door behind herself. I ran over to my cell phone, which I had on the charger, since seeing that message and responding to it, and saw another notification. "What time should we get there by?" Sam asked in the text. "What time works for you?" I replied quickly. "Probably 30 minutes to 3 o'clock. I get off of work at 2, so that gives me an hour to get ready. I didn't realize it was a formal occasion. You can come in whatever you want, so can I." She had previously sent me the address of the restaurant. It was one I remember being in at least twice. Of all the things in that brief exchange, the one thing I focused on the most was her saying that I could come in whatever I want. She may have been talking about entitlements that I had as a person to dress whatever way I wanted. It could have also meant something else, possibly that she didn't care what I had on. That was hard to believe, since I'll admit to my own preferences when it comes to the manner of clothing of those I find romantic interest. For the remainder of the day, I carried out housework. The last activity of mine was taking out 3 bags of trash that had been piling up over the course of the last 2 days. I lifted one by itself and then the remaining 2 together after returning to the house through the front door and laying on the living room floor. I checked my cell phone for the time and saw that it was 1:56 p.m. Me placing it back into my pocket. "Mom," I shouted. My mother ran down the hallway. "You've got a date in an hour," she told me. "That's right," I said. "But you're really tired. You might have to cancel on her so you can rest." "No way, give me a few minutes." After 5 minutes passed, I rose from the floor and went into my room to freshen up. I was in there for roughly 2 minutes before I heard a knock at my door, followed by my father entering before I could even say anything. "So what kind of things are you doing to make this the first date in a long string of dates?" he asked me, my back still turned. "I'm just going to let her speak all the way through and try to get a few words in here and there." I told him. Yeah, but that won't do it. You gotta have something that sets you apart. You would think that would be what I know. Yeah, that could be when you two talk. But remember, you're in favor of me shutting up while she speaks. Find a way to give her the floor and make your few lines memorable or likable. Noted. He stepped over to me, placing his hands on my shoulder while facing the back of my head and whiffed. If she complains about anything, smell won't be among them, he told me. Here's hoping, I replied. I went to my car and entered the address in the navigation system, the silver centerpiece of the interior, serving to contrast the dark gray and black pieces that composed the rest of the inside of my vehicle. After pulling out of the driveway and going down the residential streets at a slow speed, I was able to maximize my usage of the gas thanks to a fairly light amount of traffic, with maybe three or four cars regularly being in my lane, some of which being behind my vehicle and others in front of it. The navigation system directed me to pull into a center with a parking lot and identified the building as the place for which I was seeking. The parking lot was composed of various cars from different decades, and had about 4 spots that weren't taken visible to me upon first coming into the complex. I parked the car the closest I could to the building and walked over to its front door, which was see-through and had gold knobs that I could faintly see my reflection in. The smearing on the paint was probably from all the people that had touched the door in coming here before me, and I paid little attention to it when I grabbed it and walked through. There was a large elevator in front of me, and on the left side was a counter with suited men and women talking to customers. I could hear one man asking and making an order and booking a table at the same time. But the details escaped me as my mind realized something. How is she going to know where I am, I thought. I sent a text. I'm here. The message delivered to Sam's phone read. I stood against the wall for a few moments before feeling the vibration of my notifications going off. I'll be there in about 10 minutes, she wrote. I checked my watch and it was still early. She was using the time to get ready, I thought. That just means she must view this as something worthy putting time and effort into. 5 minutes passed and the door opened for the first time since I had come there. Sam walking into the place with a confident strut and facing directly as though she knew I would be standing in the front waiting for her. She had a smile upon seeing me and I moved over to shake her hand. You should have reserved some seats for us, Sam said. I'll remember that next time. When did I agree to a second date? When did you completely forego the idea? Never. She smirked and I ordered a table for two close to one of the windows. When we arrived at our table, I pulled out her chair for her and moved over to my own seat after she was situated. So tell me about yourself, I said. My whole life story, she asked. If you want to, but I'd recommend just your hobbies and the things that make you yourself. Well, I like running. Sometimes I binge watch Netflix. I play a little bit of soccer, and my favorite holiday is Halloween. I had the temptation to give out information on myself, but I had to keep with the strategy and tighten my lip. So what kind of places do you like running? Small streets, big streets? I asked her, smiling and looking down for a moment. It all depends, she said. Sometimes when I'm near a big street, I'll go down that. Small streets have the same rule, whatever's local. The waitress assigned to our table came over. The waiter assigned to our table came over with his board to take our orders down in hand and did just that within minutes. He took our menus and walked away, returning with the 2 sodas that we had ordered. Sam took one of the straws that he had placed on the table for us to use and slurped some of her drink. You haven't really told me anything about you, she said. That's right, I replied. Well, I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. I enjoy writing, keeping up with the news, the occasional long walk. She laughed. Are these long walks by the beach, she asked. Of course, I answered. What's walking without having sand beneath your feet? Maybe a walk that doesn't have sand in it, she replied. I laughed. The food was brought over in the following minutes, and we mostly remained silent while eating other than small talk. I don't know what it was about the meal, but there was a concurrency with my running out of things to discuss or bring up. So your mom told me that you've had a tough time getting dates, Sam said. That's right, I replied. Why do you think that is? If I told you I got a hex put on me when it comes to dating, would you think I was crazy? She giggled. There has to be a reason behind magic. Besides magic, she said. I couldn't give you one other than to say I've tried and that effort has sometimes been taken for granted and not appreciated. I'll admit that maybe I've tried too hard and made too many attempts towards speaking to certain women or just people in general, and that has served to disenfranchised me with even bothering anymore. You can't be that gone since we're doing this. Well, I don't think this would be happening if my mother didn't set it up. So you're saying you think we would have never gotten here if she didn't have something to do with it? Exactly. Though this seems to be the one thing I'm happy she intervened in. I feel the same way. Maybe we can do it again next week. I was thinking next Friday. I'd be down for that. I'd have to see what's going on during that day, though. Get back to me as soon as you can. We split the bill at her insistence and departed in our separate vehicles. When I returned home at roughly 4 p.m., I was met with wandering eyes and the people that had them staring through the window near the front door of the house. I could recognize them all as members of my immediate family who almost seemed to shriek collectively while rushing to relocate themselves to somewhere else in the home as though to try and pretend that they were not staring outside. When I parked my car in the driveway, I looked through my notifications. I had one message from Trey and another from Sam. How was it? Trey asked in the message sent a few minutes ago. Really, really surprisingly decent, I told him. I didn't go into thinking I didn't go into it thinking she was going to screw me over. She actually learned from my mother about my past troubles, and I'm hoping to do it again with her on Friday. I moved the screen to see the message left by Sam. Had a really good time. Hope we can do it again on Friday, she wrote. Same here. I'll ask my parents if they need any help with my siblings, I replied. If they don't, I'm free. I removed myself from my car and breathed a sigh. I was already preparing for the inquiry on my date by my parents. I stiffened my shoulders and unlocked the front door, closing and locking it behind me. My mother and father were sitting on one of the couches in the living room, my mother holding a newspaper up to her face, my father staring at the television. Hope it went well, my mother said without lifting the newspaper. I would give it an 8 out of 10, I told her. Not a bad start. Well, that's just dandy. I walked over to the couch and stepped past the newspaper to give her an embrace. I could see her eyes widening while I began performing the gesture. Thanks for hooking me up with someone that actually seems really decent, I told her. Are you going on another date with her? My father asked. Yes. He grinned. Good. Now we can try some new tricks.